everybody, it's Pastor Evelyn. I'm going to do a quick video on flip and sew using a method that we came up with called using a ribbon. So some days you just want to do something easy. You don't want to think about a lot of stuff. Maybe you're doing this for your mental health. You've had a stressful day and you just want to sew. Let me introduce you to Amazon 10-inch squares. You can buy pre-cut material, 10-inch, or different sizes. This is a 10-inch package. So I bought some 10-inch squares, and I just laid them out on my mat, cut them in half, and then I scrambled them around so they would be in an assorted fashion. And this is going to look, when I get done, it's going to look like an old quilt, not one that is just freshly made. So I have 10 by 10s that I use my rotary cutter and this to just cut them in half. Then I went to the sewing machine, put them right side to right side, stitched them together 1/4 of an inch. And here's the trick. This is where the ribbon comes in. So instead of just sewing enough for one row, I just kept sewing. So these are in random order. So when they come out, it's going to be really beautiful, random pattern. So I'm going to get ready to sew this. I'm going to lay this down, sew it here, and when it's at the length that I want it, I'm going to cut it there. Then I'll take that piece and I'll start right here and sew it. So I'm gonna move my camera around in just a moment, and I'm gonna actually sew with you just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And this is the same technique, flip and sew, that I've described to you before. So I've got my backing, my batting. I've already decided how big this project's going to be. And if you want to sew and get into a project that you could potentially finish in one afternoon, this size quilt, it's about 40 by 40 square. You can finish this project in one afternoon from start to finish. So here's my ribbon that I just took these pieces, sewed them end to end to end. So I'm going to have a couple of rows ready, and I have a lot more ready to stitch. But I did enough so I could show you how to get going on the project. So this is ready to move over to the sewing machine. So I'm going to move my camera over to the sewing machine. So here we go. We're gonna walk on over to the sewing machine. Y'all are so patient because Evelyn doesn't really have a videographer. Y'all, I trained to be an agriculture teacher a good long while ago, and then the Lord got me into the business of being a pastor, which I love. You can see there's a quilt on the board somebody's working on right now. Okay, I'm going to leave that right there. I think you're going to be able to see good enough. So just hold with me. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to sew down my first row on my flip and sew that I had laying out on the table for you, using the ribbon. So I'm gonna lay this in. This is on my favorite sewing machine right here. This is the Susie. I'm gonna start right at the edge, and it's approximately at 1/4 of an inch on my stitch width right there. The walking foot is priceless on these projects. You don't have to sew on this edge, but I like to anchor that in. So I teach it to go ahead and sew that first edge. So I really believe sewing is healing. Sometimes you just or like the opportunity to be creative and half square triangles and doing lots of designs. And some days you just want to sew. And this is a pattern that if you just want to sew, here you go. And I'm just going to do enough to help you get started on this project. I'm using a flannel backing. You can use plain cotton. And I like to use cotton batting because I like the way it feels. It's the sewer's choice on that. So I did have this pinned. I'm anchoring in right here at 1/4 of an inch. And at the end of the sewing, then I'll cut it all very straight from a quilt sandwich. I have learned the straighter you get your cuts, the easier it is putting your project together. If you're not paying good detail to your cutting, it's gonna cause you more problems during the project. Okay, right here, I have reached the edge of my batting, which means that's the edge of my project. Watch this. So I have my first row laid out. I have my first row stitched on. I'm getting to the end of that first row, and it's getting ready to be magic right here. I'm gonna cut just that row. And now this row is ready to sew on. Take that long ribbon. And remember, we put right side to right side. So here's where the random pattern comes. I'm getting ready to sew this on right side to right side. I'm going to go ahead and pin it. Okay, so here's the design of the project. So this is going to hit about 1 inch in. I would rather it hit approximately half so you get a good stagger. So I am going to start my next block approximately on the half right there. And I'm going to pin that. Started on the half. That gives me a nice staggered look. I've just got one pin in it. And I'm going to put this on the sewing machine, anchor it in. Again, I'm sewing at approximately, I'm using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So on my flip and sew, in just a moment, you'll see I'm going to open that up. For right now, I'm just going to lay this up. I like to have like some totes or chair nearby. If you had another table that was lightweight that you could put right next to where you're working, it would help hold the weight of your project. Makes it a little bit easier to sew when you're doing the flip and sew. You'd really like everything to be level, so you're not having to hold it up and you're not having to pull it. Okay, ready to sew right here. that I just put one pin in, and I'm using my hands to keep it flat and straight. The walking foot helps bear the weight on the top. Keeps it from puckering up on the top. So this is a flip and sew using one long ribbon to create your design, a random order of your print. This is really fast. I started with 10 by 10 squares, cut them in half, and I'm sewing them together. So I made a row out of sewing the 10 by 10 squares together. And we're just doing the same flip and sew. Okay, right here. Sometimes this seam wants to flip up. You take a sharp object like your seam ripper and just make sure that edge gets under the foot. Right. So you don't get in too big of a hurry. You make sure all your layers are where you want them to be. And then you sew. All right, once you reach the edge of your batting, that is the end for that row. So you might as well stop. You're just wasting material. So now I'm ready to cut this. I've reached the end of my project right here. And voila, it's getting ready to be exciting. Look, our first row. So that's ready to press. And so where I started it, I told you I wanted to start it where it had more of a stagger instead of it being right next to each other. And make sure you can see that's ready to press open. And then I'm going to take my next row of ribbon, press this. I'll make sure you can see. I know you can see up under here. So you're going to press this seam. Take that to the iron, press this seam. And then right side to right side, you lay your ribbon on here, and you can pin it right here. Right side to right side. I'm going to pin it where I can flip it over and let you see. So I'm going to sew right there, and then you have another row. All right, here's an example of how to lay out your design. I don't like the way this is falling. It's too close to the seam. So I'm going to move this up, before I start sewing, I am going to make it be more staggered. And I'm going to pin it and flip it open and let you see what I mean. Okay, so now you see that the ends are not lining up straight up on top of each other. They're spaced out some. I like the look of that better. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show for today. Just going to keep working on this project. This is called Flip and Sew using the ribbon. So God bless you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you will like and subscribe to my channel so that I can record directly onto YouTube. Save myself some time. God bless you, and I hope I'll get to see you real soon.